Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. If you've ever lived at one of those massive multi-million dollar construction sites and thought, how on earth do they figure out what all of this is going to cost? Well, you are definitely in the right place. Producing an estimated project cost sounds like this huge, monumental task, and honestly, it kind of is. But before we calculate a single dollar or add up a single brick or beam, we've got to build our foundation first. We are looking squarely at Topic 1, Establish Project Requirements. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think of a construction cost estimator as, well, almost like a detective. Long before the cranes ever roll up to the site, this professional is sitting at a desk, looking at flat 2D drawings and turning them into a 3D reality in their mind. And eventually, all of that becomes hard financial data on a spreadsheet. Literally every single line on a page translates to real-world materials, labor, and compliance laws. So our job? It's to decode those documents and figure out exactly what the project requires to get off the ground safely and legally. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover, before the build begins, decoding drawings and specifications, navigating rules and regulations, analyzing the building site, and finally, waste and compliance costs. Let's get to it. Part 1, Before the Build Begins. This is where we start talking about statutory compliance and setting the stage. Moving right along to Part 2, Decoding Drawings and Specifications. This is all about understanding the what and the how. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between two absolutely critical documents. You see, the bedrock of any estimation really starts right here. Construction drawings, those are your visual blueprints. They give you the graphical representation of the building. We're talking dimensions, detailing, the overall layout, where all the pieces fit. But visual lines just aren't enough. You also need the specifications. Think of it like this. If the drawings are a picture of the meal, the specifications are the written recipe. They give you the detailed descriptions of the products, the exact materials you need to use, and the required quality of the work to actually pull the project off. Part 3, Navigating Rules and Regulations. Basically, the rules dictating your minimum requirements. Now, while those drawings and specs show the builder exactly what the client wants, they obviously don't operate in a vacuum, right? Construction is heavily regulated. These rules strictly dictate the minimum technical and safety requirements for your project. As an estimator, you aren't just calculating the cost of materials, you're calculating the cost of doing it entirely by the book. It's helpful to think of compliance like a regulatory funnel. Right at the very top, you have the National Construction Code, or NCC. That's your broad statutory reference for minimum technical requirements across Australia. From there, the NCC funnels you down towards specific industry standards. And then finally, at the local level, you hit state and territory-specific regulations, which include some pretty strict environmental protections. Let's zoom in on those industry standards for a second. A really perfect example is AS 3959. This establishes the bushfire attack levels, or BAL. It categorizes the risks all the way from BAL low up to BALFZ, which stands for flame zone. Now, here is a super vital piece of information to remember. Industry standards, just by themselves, are actually not legally binding. But when a standard like AS 3959 is referenced and enforced by legislation like the NCC, suddenly it actively dictates what materials you can use. So if you're building in a high BAL zone, the law literally demands specific, fire-resistant materials. And as the estimator, you've got to price those specific and, yeah, usually way more expensive materials right into your estimate. Let's move on and see how this actually builds into a daily workflow, because keeping track of all these federal, state, and local laws, it can feel completely overwhelming. But that's exactly where ABLIS comes in. The Australian Business License and Information Service. This is basically the estimator shortcut. It's a really convenient search tool that lets you check exactly what specific jurisdictional regulations your project has to comply with, all based on its location and type. A real game changer for sure. Part 4, Analyzing the Building Site. Time to shift from the theoretical law to the physical dirt. Now, what's really interesting about this is how much hidden information a good estimator can extract from a simple site layout plan. We're mapping how those rules apply to the real-world environment. Look closely at those curved lines running across the site. Those indicate the physical elevation, sloping up from 55 meters to 57 meters. Seeing that instantly tells the estimator, okay, we need to account for earth moving and site leveling. Also, check out the little tree icons dotted around the perimeter. The plan actually differentiates between small trees and mature trees. Why does that matter? Because those mature trees might be protected by local council regulations, which means your site works and heavy machinery have to carefully and expensively navigate around them. Moving from the outside in, the estimator then studies the exact floor plans. This helps identify the specific type of building, residential in this case, and confirms the construction methods. You can clearly see masonry walls and specific room layouts marked out here. By understanding all of this, the estimator can verify that the planned construction methods are fully compliant with the NCC, and that's absolutely crucial for keeping the client safe from legal nightmares down the road. Part 5, Waste and Compliance Costs. We are digging into the hidden financial anchors here. Which brings us to the final and honestly most frequently missed step of the initial dossier review. We have to account for the hidden financial anchors of compliance. You know, a lot of novices will calculate the cost of bringing materials onto the site, but they totally forget to calculate the cost of taking the waste off the site. Construction generates a massive amount of waste, and you can't just toss it in a standard bin. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, strictly regulates how you dispose of it. For certain types of waste, the EPA mandates that they go to appropriate certified landfills, and those specific sites impose mandatory disposal fees. So, you have to figure out where the site is, how you're transporting the waste there, and exactly what those site fees are going to be. So the crucial point is really this shocker of a number right here. If you try to cut corners on waste management, the penalties are just staggering. For example, unlawfully disposing of asbestos anywhere that isn't certified to accept it is an immediate violation. The massive minimum fine for this is over $7,500, or up to 5,000 penalty units if they fully prosecute the case. Proper waste estimation isn't just about being a good environmental steward. It is literally about protecting the entire project from catastrophic financial penalties. And beyond waste, you've got other statutory and compliance costs. Compliance isn't just a bunch of abstract red tape. It literally translates to specific line item costs on your spreadsheet. You're looking at permit application fees, local council approvals, and EPA works approval fees. Just to put that into perspective, if a construction project in Victoria requires works approval from the EPA, the applicant has to pay a fee of 1% of the total estimated cost of the capital works. On a $10 million project, that is a cool $100,000 just for the approval. If an estimator misses that single line item, the project is instantly in the red before a single shovel even hits the dirt. So what does this all mean? Well, we have successfully established our project's foundation. We've decoded the plans, we understand the exact building methods, we've navigated the really strict regulations of the NCC and EPA, and we've analyzed the physical realities of the site itself. We know exactly what needs to be done. But this leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Now that we know all the rules and requirements, how much will the physical materials and the labor actually cost to build it? That is exactly what we'll be tackling next. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep those estimation skills sharp.